All right, so Tim Walz has been released from the basement, and he is out campaigning, and thank God he is, because this is going to give Kamala and Tim Walz a much better chance of winning the election. He's an asset on the stump, and he's an asset in interviews, and so you got to put him out there as much as possible. So he goes in, bro. He goes in here, and he goes after Trump very aggressively. Let's watch.
I am not going to be generous at times because the pain that Donald Trump has brought, and I think we know what 4 more years would look like, but this one really got me going. He was talking about groceries, and he started rambling about groceries. I don't know if some of you saw. I'm going to give this one. Here's what he said. I had to put this on here so I don't misquote it. I have more complaints on grocery. The word grocery, you know, it's sort of a simple word, but it sort of means like everything you eat. The stomach is speaking. It always does. Now, I don't know if you saw last night, we were having a town hall and he got asked about healthcare and childcare and didn't answer those. And then he spent 30 minutes standing on stage listening to music in front of this. So I'm going to be the first to say this. It is pretty funny stuff if he didn't want to be president of the United States. It's pretty funny stuff if he weren't going to try and deny women their reproductive rights. It's pretty funny stuff if he wasn't going to try and rip healthcare away from all of us with the ACA, or if he wasn't threatening us in different ways. So look, here in Pennsylvania, I know you know this, this idea about, well, it was better under Donald Trump. For God's sakes, our neighbors were dying by tens of thousands because this guy's telling us to inject bleach and not dealing with COVID. As a governor, I was part of this. We were in Hunger Games with other governors just to get basic things in healthcare to take care of our people. Here in Pennsylvania, he lost 275,000 jobs during the Trump years. That's just factual. These are just dates. And tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, promises to terminate it if he gets elected. Stripping protections, pre-existing conditions, devastating rural hospitals. You know the whole thing that he did.
Yes. He's just hitting him on substance. He's just hitting him on his record when it comes to jobs, his record when it comes to healthcare, mocking the fact that he had one of the weirdest town halls of all time, which lasted a grand total of 3 questions, and they listened to fucking YMCA. Like, this is why you need him on the campaign trail, bro. This is why you need him. All right, I got another one for you.
It would be funny if it wasn't so dangerous. Yesterday, he went on Fox News. That's a safe place for him. He went on there, and he suggested that he is going to send the military against the enemy from within. Now, I want you to think about it. In other words, Americans who don't support him. Just to be clear, if any of your neighbors or friends or anybody thinks about that, you know who he's talking about? He's talking about you. He's talking about you. He's talking about someone who comes to a rally to express their love and their commitment to our democracy. Donald Trump sees that as an enemy. All right. So I have to tell you, as someone who wore this nation's uniform proudly, as someone who now is the commander and chief of the Minnesota National Guard, the idea of sending U.S. military personnel against American citizens makes me sick to my stomach. I'll tell you what, we'll let the lawyers decide if what he said was treason, but what I know is it's a call for violence, plain and simple. And it's pretty damn un-American, if you ask me.
There it is. They're taking the gloves off. They're taking the gloves off. This is what they have to do. This is what they should have done all along. There were some pretty bad signs for a while there from the Kamala campaign. I don't like that they were snuggling up to Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and touting Republican endorsements every 7 seconds. I think that's bad politics. I also think it's bad politics when Kamala's asked directly, how are you different from Joe Biden? And she comes up with nothing. I think that's really, really bad. People want you to be different from Biden, right? This isn't rocket science. His numbers when he was the candidate were in the toilet, in part because he's 1,000 years old, but also because things are not going great, right? So they're taking the gloves off. I also want to hear them bring up time and time again. He brought up in this speech the 91 criminal charges, or what was it? The 32-time felon, I think it was he brought up. Good. Hit him with that. The other thing you should never get through an event without bringing up is when he said we should eliminate all rules, regulations, and articles in the Constitution to get me back in power, basically. That's what he said. We should terminate the Constitution or suspend the Constitution. That's what he said. If anybody else said that, it would be the end of their political career immediately. If a Democrat said that, it'd be the number one thing on Fox News all day, every day, for a month. You'd never be able to bring up that person's name again without their response being, oh, the person who said he wants to terminate the Constitution, literally the most un-American thing you could ever possibly think of? Sure. Yeah, that person. So they're hitting him. They're taking the gloves off. It's great that he's out there now. All right, let me do one more for you here.
So look, if anybody wants to pretend that this is a normal conversation that Donald Trump is having, just dispel that. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
Using the F word. By the way, Charlemagne also brought this up to Kamala Harris, like, basically, why can't you call a spade and say fascist? And she was like, we can. Damn, they're taking the gloves off. Now the right is going to melt down and cry and whine and bitch and moan, but it's like, okay, if you don't want us to call him a fascist, he should stop saying openly fascist things. Like we're going to deploy the National Guard or the military against the enemy from within, the radical left, which of course he defines as anybody who's not in MAGA, right? This is what he says. He says he's going to invoke a law from 1798, which later on was used for Japanese internment. He wants to invoke that law to, do his like mass deportation. He wants to deport not only illegal immigrants, legal immigrants. This is what he said. The Haitian immigrants in Springfield who were lied about by Trump, he wants to deport them, even though they're perfectly legal. They followed the process. They did the right thing. They're model immigrants, right? They work. They revive the local church scene. All that stuff. Doesn't care. Wants to kick them out. Gee, I wonder why. What is it about these Haitian immigrants that he doesn't like so much, even though they're legal immigrants? I can't quite figure it out, right? So if you don't want liberals and leftists to call Trump a fascist, he should stop being a fascist. He should stop saying fascist things. He shouldn't have tried to overturn the last election, shouldn't have done January 6th, shouldn't say we're going to terminate the Constitution, shouldn't be the most hostile U.S. president in modern American history to the First Amendment. It's so funny that they attacked Tim Walz and Kamala on First Amendment grounds, and it's like nobody has ever been more anti-First Amendment in modern American history as a president than Donald Trump. He says we should punish flag burning with a year in jail. He sued CNN for $475 million because they used the words "the big lie" to describe his election denialism, right? So he's killing it. He's killing him.
Let that sink in and don't be a damn bit afraid of saying it, because that's exactly who he is.
Yes.
That's exactly who he is. But here's the thing. Here's the good news. We get to do something about it. If you're like me, I am sick and tired of this guy, ready to turn the page on him, and we can do that by making Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
So the other thing I'd say is, and I just saw an article about this that were like, oh, they're switching up the rhetoric a little bit and they're going to lean into Trump's like the authoritarian threat that he is. And I love that. But at the same time, I don't want them to lose the weird talk too. Like, I know Biden's advisors are absolute morons and they told Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, drop the "we're not going back" thing and drop the weird talk, but they're wrong. Those things spread like wildfire because it's true. Okay, here's the thing, guys. You don't get to pick what pops and what doesn't. It's not up to you, right? And I know this as somebody who's on YouTube. I don't get to pick which videos and the titles and the thumbnails, which ones take off and which ones don't. There are factors beyond my control. I might make what I think, this is the best video anybody's ever made, and it's so substantive and factual, and everybody's going to love it, and then I put it out there, and it's, boom, 12,000 views. And I can put one out there that I think is relatively lowbrow, slop, without much attention to detail, but the title and the thumb is right, and boom, 300,000 views, right? Like, I don't get to choose that. I do the best I can and let the chips fall where they may. By the same token, if you're running a political campaign and the weird thing takes off and spreads like wildfire, and the "we're not going back" thing takes off like wildfire, you got to use it. You can't say, oh, no, theoretically, hypothetically, this is too negative. That's what they told them. So we can't do it. And so they changed the "we're not going back" to "we're turning the page." Okay, but that hasn't taken off as well. Go back to "we're not going back." Go back to "we're not going back." So this is good stuff from Tim Walz. I lied. I'm going to play one more clip for you. Here we go.
Because we know when workers win, America wins. It's that simple. And guess what? The middle class grows and businesses flourish. Now look, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they see things differently. Trump talks a big game, but he was a disaster for working people. He was one of the biggest losers of manufacturing jobs in American history, and that's a fact. So to your neighbors, your friends, hell, our family members, if they say, I don't really like Trump, but I like his policies, which policies were those? When he destroyed American manufacturing? When he shipped jobs to China? Hell, he doesn't even manufacture his Bibles here. He outsources that to China. So just so we know, under his leadership, 83,000 jobs disappeared in Wisconsin. Now, I know this state knows. Thank God for Tony Evers and some sanity in this, because I remember. Because remember Trump and that guy before Tony, when they went to the Foxconn, they went to the Foxconn site. Donald Trump showed up with a golden shovel You tell me, Governor Whitmer, if he knows which end of the shovel actually works. I guarantee you that. But he did that photo op and he promised you 13,000 jobs. And he called that big glass sphere the eighth wonder of the world. Well, I know it's not a shock to any of you, but none of those jobs materialized. And that sphere, you can get a pretty good deal right now renting it out as a banquet hall, just so you know that. Once again, it would be funny if it wasn't so damn sad, because that's Donald Trump's legacy.
Damn, man, he's killing them. 83,000 jobs lost in Wisconsin alone. Woo! In total, there were 200,000 manufacturing jobs that were lost under the Trump administration. He brings up the Foxconn factory, which was a giant ruse. The jobs never materialized. Also, the Carrier scam. Remember that? He did this big event like, I'm saving the jobs for Carrier. I'm saving it. Going to do a big event touting how I'm saving the jobs. So he gave them a subsidy to keep the jobs here. They took the money, the tax money, and then they outsourced the jobs within a year anyway. So they robbed you twice. They screwed over the workers, and then they also stole tax money and still screwed over the workers, right? It would have been literally better if you did nothing, because at least then they outsource the jobs, but you don't actually have taxpayers giving them a whole bunch of money, right, to allegedly keep the jobs here, which they didn't do. So he did it exactly wrong in every way, shape, and form. Hammering him. This is a populist message right here. So this, I mean, look, this is giving me hope again from where the campaign was with all the Liz Cheney bullshit and, them sort of hitting the wall, right? This is giving me hope again that they can get it together and they can get it across the finish line because, yeah, this is how you go after Trump. This is how you go after Trump. Take the gloves off. Don't do Hillary 2016 style bullshit. Do tough, aggressive, populist campaigning while also calling a spade, which is Trump being a fascist and an authoritarian. He used the F word. Kamala used the F word. That's new. And I like it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.